My next guest is just coming, and he's a favourite of ours. Let's see if he's there. Good morning.
Good morning, Sonia.
Good morning, everybody. It's HG Tudor. He's been with us before. HG is, well, he's the creator of the Knowing the very popular Narcissist series. And HG has joined us today, as he's joined us before, to talk about narcissism, because it is the thing in our society at the moment, isn't it, HG?
It is. It's very prevalent, Sonia, and many people need to understand, not only in terms of they'll have encountered a narcissist quite possibly in their romantic life, familial life, a parent, a brother, maybe even their child, but also in terms of people at work and on the biggest scale, of course, in politics, in show business, in sport and so forth. So our kind are everywhere. And when people start to understand about narcissism, they start to realize, that explains why that person behaves.
Right, exactly. Well, now, look, as you know, I've bumped up against my fair share of narcs, not only personally, but professionally. And the thing is, they can leave your life very upset and confused. And what HG brings to the table is this incredible insider info about how to survive them and even how to outwit them. Obviously, you've been diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. As I say, you're a popular figure and people turn to you both privately and publicly for guidance. And for obvious reasons, HG needs to remain anonymous because he's out there working in the world. And the last thing he needs is for people to know really who he is, because he's here to help. And I appreciate that. And you've said to me before, and as you just started to say, many famous people are narcissists, right? So we thought it'd be really fun to look at why they are and who that might be. First of all, HG, you've submitted these people to a sort of HG test to determine their level of narcissism. What did that involve?
Well,
that's not a great line.
The opportunity where they want, whether they're...
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go for it.
Okay, sure. So what I do is I offer people where they suspect they might have a narcissist in their life, what I call the narc detector test. And they submit a raft of information to me. It can include videos and messages and so forth. And I analyze this whole package and determine, are you dealing with a narcissist? And I operate to a strict evidential standard, looking across various indicators to make that determination. So I do a similar thing with what I call the Tudor scope, where I put these famous people underneath the Tudor scope and examine their behavior over a long period of time, because we can't do it on just one thing. People sometimes come to me and they say, HG, this person doesn't talk to me. Does that mean they're a narcissist? And I say, well, you can't gauge it on one act alone. It's an indicator, it's not determinative. So we have to look at the behaviors over a period of time, different scenarios from different sources of information. And that's what I do. And so my viewers on YouTube come along and also my readers on my blog and would often suggest people. And I've put many different people under the Tudor scope to make a determination, famous and infamous people, as to do they meet the criteria for a narcissist, in my expert opinion.
Right. And so narcissists, famous narcissists are pretty much in all fields, right? Politics, celebrity, anything that's powerful, really, right?
That's right. What we need, although most narcissists are unaware and don't know this, but what we need is what I call the prime aims. And that's the ability to control people, the ability to draw what I call fuel from them, emotional response from them. Character traits to make us look good, and residual benefits, which is money, contacts, somewhere to live, somebody to do your laundry, varies dependent on the type of narcissist and the requirements. So we need those four things. So if you think about it, if you get into a position of power running a country, you can then control more or less your entire populace.
Right.
So that's a huge amount of power and control. The emotional response of your actions, it's covered in the broadcast news. You see it in the print media, people protesting outside of the Prime Minister's residence, for example, the presidential palace. You can acquire character traits from all those people, and the residual benefits are huge. You create a
Right.
facade of being this kind person, this altruistic leader that's there
Right.
to advance humanity and perhaps make money off what you do with your memoirs and so forth. So that's just a politician. Take a pop star, again, playing to a stadium of 50,000 people. They're under your control. They're lifting their phones up, putting on the lights for you during the ballad. They're cheering your every action and woohoo and call and response, all that fuel coming towards the narcissist.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute massive boost. So fame and infamy, the positions of power and politics, a government, being a pop star or a rock star or a famous writer or a journalist or a broadcaster, being a prominent sports person, these are hunting grounds for our kind and absolute honeypots for us.
Interesting. There's been some research about this, and that it's one paper I was looking at, which is by Drew Pinsky and Mark Young. They conducted a study with over 200 celebrities using the narcissistic personality inventory, and the results showed that celebrities are 17.84% more narcissistic than the general public. So people are saying, give us some names, HG. Now, first of all, let me just give you a little primer, and that is obviously we haven't been able to clinically diagnose these people.
Correct.
But what HG measures is, as he says, he subjects them to the HG measure. And so this is a matter of opinion, but it is, I think you'll find some relevance to this. So let's look at some famous narcissists, HG. Let's start off with who do you consider at this moment in time to be the sort of number one contemporary narcissist in our world?
Well, there's one sat at 10 Downing Street at the moment.
Right.
The Prime Minister. And what he does brilliantly well is he has a mind like a steel trap, and he knows full well what he's doing, and he portrays himself as this bumbling Boris character. And it works very well, because one of the things that we must have in order to control people is never being held to account. If we're held to account, you are controlling us, so that can't happen. And he is the embodiment of Teflon, isn't he?
Yes.
If you look back at what he's done, the things that he's walked away from, and he's brilliant at the deflection. So I can't remember precisely what the scandal was, but I can picture him coming outside saying, "I've nothing to offer you but tea."
Oh, yes.
And he came out to the press. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I do.
And he came
remember
outside
that.
just with wearing a rugby shirt, and his hair disheveled. And of course, there was some scandal going on, and he just came out saying, "I have nothing to offer you but tea and laughter or sympathy or such like." And people just were caught up in it and thinking, "Oh, he's a grand bloke." And in each instance, he just portrays as this bumbling Boris, so that people think, "Oh, he's kind of like one of us, isn't he? He's quite likable."
That's right. Even the name Boris makes it slightly humorous, doesn't it?
It is, and he has that demeanour of, when you hear him talk, he doesn't come across like a statesman. He doesn't come across as imperious. And part of his attraction, of course, is, and he's a populist prime minister, is that he plays to the people. And they all think, well, I could have a pint with Boris, where they could never imagine themselves doing that with Margaret Thatcher. Right. Even though, of course, she was a narcissist also. But with Boris, he portrays this role and he knows why he's doing it. He puts on that act and he knows that he is. Many narcissists don't realize they are. He knows what he's doing. And behind all of that, he's laughing into his sleeve.
Right. What about historical characters? So say, for example, somebody like Adolf Hitler, would you say he would have been a narcissist?
Yes, he was. You've got individuals like Vidkun Quisling, the Norwegian, who instituted the puppet government when the Nazis invaded Norway. He certainly was one. Many, Henry VIII, he was a narcissist.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah, so you can imagine the threat to control posed by the Pope not giving him the divorce. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll break away my religion. There you are. To you, Pope. Yeah. I'm now able to assert that control by, in effect, creating a different type of religion within the church. And I don't like you anymore, off with her head. You would give me a divorce. And you saw the fate of Sir Thomas More and Wolsey, how they were dealt with. It just dispatched as a matter of that. You'd only have to look at individuals across history, particularly kings and queens and political leaders, and it's festooned with them. And also, it becomes self-perpetuating, because what happens is, I think, as I mentioned before, in order to create a narcissist, you have to have a genetic predisposition. So it's got to come from somebody above you, usually Ma or Pa.
Right.
And you have to have a lack of control environment. So imagine you're the son of the monarch and you're the heir to the throne. So your father got to the top of the tree through his narcissism driving him there. So he takes over the throne. Okay, so there's been an insurrection. He takes the throne. You're his offspring. You've got the genetic predisposition. What's your childhood like? Are you taken to kindergarten and allowed to play in the mud with your mates? No, you're not. Grown adults bend to your every whim. You're kept away from your parents, invariably with a governess. So that's a lack of control environment. That child has no ability to govern his own world. Thus, he becomes a narcissist too. And then, of course, what does the country always need? It needs an heir. So he has offspring, and on it goes, and on it goes, and on it goes.
Good Lord. It is. It just continues, doesn't it? Everybody's shouting names in the comments here, by the way, and many of them I absolutely agree with. Kanye West, I would say, was
well, what absolutely, Sonia, what you've got there with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian is some knock-on-knock action.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's like two chimps at the zoo flinging poo at one another, and they're really having a good go at one another, being nasty and slinging that mud around at one another. And I may do a number of my readers and viewers have been asking me to do an analysis on these two, and I may well do so. Commonly at the moment, we've got the Tinder swindler, of course, that's appeared on Netflix. He is clearly a narcissist, and I've just done a series on my YouTube channel about him that went live last night. So throw some more names at me if you like.
Well, what about Meghan Markle? Because according to Boomshine, she is the queen of the narcs.
She is. And I have a huge series of videos, 700 about her, because she's the gift that keeps on giving and demonstrating a certain form of narcissism. So yes, your viewer is absolutely right about her.
What about people like Donald Trump, Madonna, Tom Cruise, Paris Hilton, O.J. Simpson? Do they all sort of score, or just one or two of them?
Donald Trump does. He's a particularly in-your-face type of narcissist in my categorization. What I call it upper lesser type B. No facade. What you see is what you get. He's bold, he's brash, he's belligerent, he's bullying. So he's that particular style. Madonna, yes, the necessity of always putting herself out there, having her boobs popping out, always having all of the types of surgeries to maintain that longevity, that she needs that control through the repeated, in the 80s, very successful pop star, less so in the 90s. Here she is in her early 60s. Yeah. She still has to keep popping up. She still has to demonstrate that she's there. And she shows that self-absorption, that necessity for control that has to be there, the receipt of the fuel, the responses from people. Many of your reality TV stars fall into narcissism, because if you think about it, you'll look at individuals and think, oh my goodness me, I would never, ever embarrass myself going through that. But they're lapping it up. Look at me. I've got control over these people. Although, of course, they don't consciously know that. They just think they're having a good time. But not everybody, of course, that's a reality TV star is a narcissist, and not everybody in politics, pop music, and so forth is.
I would say Katie Price was.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, complete car crash of an individual. Yeah. So we've got somebody there who can't regulate her behaviours, but what she does, because she seeks control in the moment, in order to satisfy that control with a collateral consequence. Oh. So she seeks control, and then there's a collateral consequence of she gets done for drink driving.
Right.
Or what is it she calls it? Is it the dirty palace or something that she used
to live in?
The
Mucky Mansion that's just been done up for a Channel 4 programme. Yes.
There we are. So
somebody else's expense.
Exactly. So, there we are. Sense of entitlement that somebody else pays for it. Lack of accountability for her behaviours in living in this filthy hovel. And the fact is that she would assert control in the moment by the way that she would deal with people, with no consequential consideration for what her actions have, namely having a children living in that sort of squalor.
Right.
And then you also have the behaviour that she has multiple relationships, one after the other, draws them in, and then gets bored of them, and then they get devalued. She treats them badly, then they get kicked to the curb or they walk away, and then she's on to the next one. And all of a sudden, this is the biggest love in my life. I've never loved anybody this way, the idealization that she goes through. So She has many, many indicators that support the fact that she's a narcissist.
100%. People are saying here, got to be Justin Trudeau. He's got to be a narc.
Well, there are people who want me to examine him with regard to what's recent behaviour. So I'm going to keep my powder dry on that one, because I am going to do a series on him.
Yeah, good. Look forward to it. Look forward to it. What can we learn from these people other than avoiding them? What can we learn from these very public, very famous narcissists?
Well, at the entry level, it enables you to understand, why is that person behaving in the way that they do? Because often people are perplexed. They don't understand. So, for example, you have somebody who's got a lot of money and then they fritter it away. And you're thinking, well, why on earth did they do that? And where it's determined that person's a narcissist, you can see that they live in a haphazard fashion, because they're always needing to assert control in the moment. So they go out with an entourage. They need to assert control over that entourage by buying them lots of drinks and everybody in the club. So they get lots of fuel. They're controlling everybody, but they end up with a bar bill of $80,000.
Yeah.
And then they want to impress people, so they go and buy a huge mansion for $20 million without thinking about the consequences of what they're doing. So as an entry level, it enables people, Sonia, to understand why the dickens are they behaving this way. So it provides understanding. In other instances, it can give you an informed decision as to, well, should I actually offer my support to this individual any longer? Should I support them politically? Should I buy the products and services of this person because of the way they are? Now, also bear in mind that you don't actually have to deal with these people personally.
Right.
So take for example, Steve Jobs. He was a narcissist. But many of us use the devices I'm talking to you on one now. So he's provided that. Steve Jobs has never caused me a problem in my life, yet we can access his products, the products that he was instrumental in designing and bringing forward. So, of course, with narcissists, there's a lot of things that people enjoy being entertained by narcissists. You have maybe one in your football team, maybe more than one.
Right.
There'll be the entertainer that you go and watch, the comedian. So in that level, it's not as much of an issue. But what it does help you understand is with certain individuals where they seem to have an appetite for self-destruction, it can help people understand that it's the narcissism that's working that way. Not all narcissists go down that path, only certain ones do. But of course, the big thing is, as they always say, never meet your heroes. If your heroes are narcissists and you meet them, you'll probably find that many of them are this haughty, aloof, not particularly pleasant person. Your dreams are shattered.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, the marvelous H.G. Tudor. I can't recommend his work highly enough. Join us again, HG. Let's keep breaking down these categories. Have a marvelous weekend. HG Tudor, knowing the narcissists, everybody. Take good care of yourself, HG. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sonia.